everyone, my name's Christina and I'm a travel specialist for As You Wish Vacations. While I book many vacation destinations, I specialize in the Disney products. And this video series focuses on Disney Cruise Line specifically. If you'd like more information about visiting Walt Disney World Resort, make sure you check out our video series on planning your Walt Disney World vacation. So we've been planning our Disney Cruise Line vacation. We've been talking about some of the destinations that you can visit. We've talked about the Caribbean, we've talked about Alaska. Well, today is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to talk about the Disney Wonder and the itineraries that the Disney Wonder does in between their big ones in the Caribbean and Alaska. So what happens, it starts its rotation in Port Canaveral. So from February to April, it will be stationed in Port Canaveral, and it will do 7-night Caribbean and 3- and 4-night Bahamian cruises from Port Canaveral. Then at the end of April, everything changes. It does a Panama Canal repositioning cruise. So it will go from Port Canaveral to San Diego. So that's a 14-night cruise with a lot of stops and a lot of days at seas. So pretty long cruise. That one books up pretty quickly because it's really cool to do that Panama Canal cruise. Then, once it finally reaches San Diego, it does a bunch of Baja California cruises in May, and then it does a California coast cruise. It repositions, it goes from San Diego up to Vancouver. Then from Vancouver, it does its summer itinerary, so it spends May to September doing Alaska. So we talked about Alaska last week, so if you're interested in learning more about Alaska, I'll put a little link up here. I'll tell you all about the Alaskan itineraries and all of that, port excursions and all that fun stuff. Then after it leaves Alaska, it comes back to San Diego. So from September to October, it will do some it will do some Halloween time cruises from San Diego. So from San Diego, they have Baja cruises and then a Mexican Riviera cruise. Then it does the Panama Canal again, so you're coming from San Diego to Galveston. So doesn't make it all the way back to Port Canaveral. It does some itineraries from Galveston. So if you live in the Texas area, this is a great cruise for you to pick up right from Galveston. I have a few clients who live in the Houston area who do these cruises every year. And they go from Galveston to either the Caribbean or the Bahamas. Then it repositions again and goes from Galveston to San Juan, Puerto Rico. So it will do some southern Caribbean cruises out of San Juan, and that allows you to do a shorter cruise, but hitting some of those ports that if you were doing another Southern Caribbean cruise from Port Canaveral, you would have to do a 10 or 14 night. These you can do in 6 or 7 nights, and they hit some really cool ports. We'll talk about those coming up. And then it does reposition back to Port Canaveral. So it's in San Juan in January, back to Port Canaveral in February to April. So that's kind of what the Wonder does. Let's talk about some of those itineraries. Again, we've already talked about the Western and Eastern Caribbean. We've talked about the Bahamas. So today I'm just going to talk about those rare cruises out of San Diego and Galveston. So out of San Diego, you have a 2-night Baja, which is a super short cruise, but if you've never done a cruise, this might be a good taste to see if you get motion sickness or whatever. I definitely think you want at least a 4-night if it is your first cruise and you do plan on experiencing the ports. If you just want to experience the ship, a 2-night is great. You sail, you port in Ensenada, Mexico, and then you head back. The 3-night is the same, but it adds a day at sea, so that will give you a little bit more of an experience. But I definitely recommend the 4-night because you can really experience everything the ship has to offer plus Cabo. So the 4-night sails, it has a day at sea, it does Cabo San Lucas and another day at sea before you come home. So really get to experience everything on the ship. And then you have a 5-night, which is a great way to experience both the ship and the ports, because then you add a day in Ensenada. So you sail, you have a day at sea, you have a port in Cabo, you have another day at sea, a port in Ensenada, and then you head back. Then there's a 7-night Mexican Riviera cruise, so it's a little bit different than Baja. So you sail, you have a day at sea, you port in Cabo, you port in Mazatlan, you port in Puerto Vallarta, and then you have 2 days at sea before coming home. So a lot of ports, a few days at sea, a lot of fun. Like I said, after you hit San Diego and you do those Baja cruises, the ship moves up to Vancouver to do the Alaska itineraries. So you do have a really quick repositioning cruise, California Coast Cruise. So you leave from San Diego, you port in San Francisco, you port in Victoria, British Columbia, and then you end in Vancouver, British Columbia. Then it does all of their fun Alaska cruises. Again, I'll put a link here to the Alaska video. And then it comes back in ports in Galveston. So I'm not going to talk about the ports that they have in Galveston because we've talked about them on the Bahamas and Caribbean videos. But they're very similar. They just leave out of Galveston. So the first one you have is a 6-night Western. So you sail from Galveston, you have a day at sea, you port in Cozumel, you port in Grand Cayman, and then you have 2 days at sea. So you have more days at sea than your typical 7-night Western Caribbean out of Port Canaveral. You also don't stop in Falmouth, Jamaica. So a little more time at sea getting to and from Galveston. But again, if you're from Texas, this is a great opportunity without having to get to Port Canaveral. Then you have a 7-night Bahamian. I love this itinerary because I love Key West. I think I talked about that a lot in the last Bahamian cruise video I did. So for the 7-night, you set sail. You have a day at sea. You port in Key West, which again, I love. You port in Nassau. You have a day at Castaway Cay. So that's what definitely makes this itinerary a lot of fun if you live in Texas, so you can get to Castaway Cay without having to pay for airfare to get to Florida. So that's a lot of fun, a great option. And then the itineraries out of San Juan, you have a 6 and a 7-night Southern. So the 6-night Southern, you sail away, you have port in St. Martin, you port in Antigua, you port in St. Lucia, you port in Barbados, and then you have a day at sea before returning to San Juan. Then you have a 7-night, which has completely different ports. So there's so much going on at these southern cruises. You set sail, you hit Tortola, which is in the British Virgin Islands. You go to St. Kitts. You have a day at sea, and then you hit Curacao, Aruba. You're at sea, and then you're back in San Juan. So the other great thing about these Southern Caribbean cruises is you can add a little vacation in Puerto Rico before or after your cruise. So those are fun itineraries as well. Great way to see those islands that are a little more southern on a shorter itinerary. So we've talked a lot about all of those Caribbean ports. We have not talked about the Mexican ports, so I am going to do that in this video. Ensenada is on most of those Baja itineraries. It's one of the biggest wine regions in Mexico. So this is great for an adults cruise. It has pristine beaches, turquoise waters, and then of course all the vineyards. It's known for its commercial fishing, so there's some great fishing excursions. There's also great surfing. They have a teen surfing excursion in Ensenada, which looks like a lot of fun and is great for that age that really doesn't have as much to do on the ship. Then you hit Cabo. I'm sure you guys have all heard of Cabo. It's all about the resorts there. There's golf, water sports, anything that you can think of, Cabo has it. It's very built up and very resort focused. Then on the longer itineraries, you do hit Mazatlan, and that is a little bit more quaint. It has a new town, which is where all the resorts and shopping districts and all of that is, but there's also an old town, so you can experience some of the Mexican culture, cobblestone streets, all of that as well. And then Puerto Vallarta is a hub of culture and arts and resorts as well. They all have those resorts, but they all have their own little special thing to it. You're going to find the excursions are very similar to the Caribbean excursions. You're going to have city tours, you're going to have horseback riding, dolphin encounters, zip lines, golf, beach days, snorkeling. But there's there's a little bit more to some of these places. There's a really cool camel Mexican outback adventure, there's those surfing adventures, and then those wine and brewery tours, which are unique to these itineraries. So if you guys are located in California or Texas and you think this is the best way for you to go on your first cruise, I agree, and you should contact me today, Christina at aywvacations.com. And if you are interested in those Southern Caribbean or Panama Canal cruises, they book up fast, so you want to book those as soon as they announce the 2020 dates. 2019 is already open for booking, so I'm happy to help you with that as well. You might just not see the availability you would on 2020. So I'm ready to help you book your 2020 when those are released, get you on a list. If you want to be the first to know when those are released, make sure you follow me on social media. I'm at aywchristina. Thank you guys all for joining me. Please subscribe, comment below, and I hope all your vacations are exactly as you wish.